Hey everybody, back again, and today we are going to be finishing up this bowie knife right here. If you saw the forging a bowie knife video I just did, that is this blade. I also made the guard and burnt this through by the end of that video. I didn't show the process of the guard making or the burn through on the handle, but today we're just going to be kind of doing a little of an in-depth dive on how I finish these knives step by step. This is going to be more so talking about the process rather than showing it. If you want to see it, I recommend you go back and watch the Viking Sacks video. That process is a little more in depth on how I put some of this stuff together, and the large fighting knife video that came before that one. Those two are really in depth on how I do this process in terms of showing it. Today's more going to be a tell than a show on how this is done. So I'm going to get the scale knocked off and I'm going to start polishing this. Then we'll be back to discuss the individual steps. But before we do that, I'm going to also show you guys this. This is going to be another project video. I'm going to do a fit and finish series on this blade. This is a 26-inch blade as it stands right now. By the time I'm done, I'm hoping to make it a 25 and a half or 26, depending on how much of the material I can retain. I forged it as close to finished as I possibly could. It does have some hammer markings in there. I'm going to leave a lot of those in the spine just to show off the overall forged profile. It's going to have a darker spine and a cleaner edge, so to speak. But this will be a series in and of itself. It is a fantasy yatagan. Basically, it's a yatagan blade attached to a European style hilt. It'll be a hand and a half yatagan sword. So, two hands on that to control it a little bit easier. I've got the distal taper in there and everything already. It goes from nice and thick to a real thin profile there. Everything stayed dead straight when I quenched. So we're going to do that one in a separate series. Now back to the video you guys came for. So now we've gotten it cleaned up a bit. I've just knocked the scale off with a wire brush and then profiled that edge to make sure everything's nice and smooth. Basically, kind of just straightening out any wobbles along this side from forging the bevel, because it's kind of hard to keep these bevels perfect when you're forging them, especially with that bellied recurve style that I put on there. So I've gone ahead and just kind of cleaned that up just a little bit, smoothed it up, not to where I'm going to overheat it. You can still see that heat treat line on the steel there. That's pretty wild. But now I'm actually going to tape off the back, and I'm only going to be shining up the bevel on this one. The other one I did, the other bowie knife I did recently, was completely shined up. This one I'm going to leave a lot of that file pattern in there, and I'm going to leave this spine nice and dark. So in order to do that, I'm going to make myself some guidelines with some blue tape. Just painter's tape, frog tape, whatever you want to call it. And then I'm going to use a couple of different grinding discs, starting with just a regular grinding disc to get that all cleaned up. And then I'm going to use a couple of polishing discs, which are this style of polymer wheel. I have up to 600 grit here, and usually what I'll do is I'll do it progressively. I'll start with the grinding disc, go to the 80 grit, then I'll go to the 200 grit, get all the 80 grit marks out, then go up to 4, then 6. That way it's nice and reflective, but I won't be touching this spine area, just the edge bevel. We've got the grinding done on what we're going to grind. I also sharpened the edge up, put the bevel on, the primary and secondary. So now we're just going to take the tape off and see what it looks like without that tape on there, see if it looks good or if we're going to have to grind the rest off, because I want this finish to be good. This is the first time I've done this kind of look to a knife, so I'm intrigued to see how it goes. Usually I just shine them up entirely. How she's going to look. All we've got to do is work on the guard and the handle, get this thing fitted up, and then we'll have a finished bowie here. So I'm going to go ahead and just wire brush the bow tie guard, because we're leaving that the way it looks shape-wise. Doesn't need to be reprofiled or anything. So I'm just going to hit that with a wire brush, and that'll be done. Then shape the handle and get it all glued up and see what we're left with. So I've gone ahead and shined up that guard a bit. Just like I said, just hit it with a wire brush. That way it's nice and shiny to match that edge. Kind of a nice offset between this and that pretty wood. So where the handle is going to be the pretty part in this knife. It's going to be old school style. So, just enough work done to make it a functional tool and make it look nice, but at the same time, all the embellishments in the furniture that you would want. So now that that's all cleaned up, I'm gonna go do the handle off camera. Going to be using a mix of this guy right here, which is probably the best $20 I've ever spent on woodworking as a knife maker, because as a knife maker, you learn your way around an angle grinder one way or another. And this is an angle grinder tool that is designed specifically for wood. It looks big and scary, but if you are safe about it, you wear your proper PPE, and you take your time, you're not going to hurt yourself. So now we've gone ahead and prepped these two pieces. Something I didn't show in those other videos that actually shows the process is these notches right here. I knock in a couple of notches on the tang that aren't very deep. They're just somewhat wide. So that way, when I glue this up, it has something else to retain it in there aside from just the physical bond. It has a place for that epoxy to actually act like a knob and go in there. So this is the rough shape for the handle. Just gotta clean it up. And when it fits up, it'll look something like that. So that's our first look at kind of how this knife's gonna come together. Mahogany handle, mild steel guard, file, old school file for the blade. So yeah, I'm gonna go over to the belt sander, get this prettied up, and then epoxy together, and we'll finish the video out here. So this is the handle all cleaned up. It's not epoxied together yet, but it's not tapped on either. So aside from those notches, I do grind that down to resemble a nail. So as I peen it on, it kind of digs a little bit. It makes it, you know, just that extra little bit more snug when I fit it up. That way, as everything hardens, it stays exactly where I want it. But yeah, I'm gonna go get this glued up. So you're gonna have to forgive me. I ended up oiling it off camera. I forgot to videotape that, but that grain popped pretty nicely. It looks nice. That cherry red, nice dark redwood really goes well with that knife. A lot of rustic vibes on this. I was going for, you know, a more rustic looking, kind of cowboy looking knife. The other one was similar, but it would have been really hard to get that kind of polish back in the day. You would have been there for a long time with some sandpaper. But this is what we're going with. I'm going to give you guys some close-up shots here in a second so you can see that handle and everything a little bit better. But yeah, that does it for today's video. If you like what you see, go ahead and hit subscribe and all that good jazz. If you're looking to buy a knife, hit me up on Etsy. Links in the description. Stay safe. Love you guys. Bye.